Oh, yeah. They're testing at Bristol, preparing for 2026. We'll get into some of those preparations, and we'll also look back now that we've had a little more time to digest the season here, as you saw that car on the track there testing. We're also going to talk, at least real briefly, about the lawsuit, kind of what milestones have been reached in recent times, and why some people don't want to talk. That's here on 5 to Go. And thank you for tuning in to the 5 to Go podcast. In the off season, where the NASCAR, as Nate Ryan calls it on the Hauler Talk NASCAR podcast, the wide NASCAR podcast universe gets a little smaller in the off season. So we thank you for tuning into us, and we're committed to putting shows out as often as we can here through the off season. I'm co-host of the show and 11 Alive traffic reporter, Doug Fireball Turnbull. I'm also part of the announcing team at Performance Racing Network. That's what gets me close to the sport, that and about 24 years of fandom. I'm glad to be on with you, joined, of course, by our esteemed panel in full. First off, he's our roving racing journo. He's our super fanalist, our motorsports super fanalist, here to crunch all the numbers. And hashtag hire Devin. Respond right here. And Devin is a winner, even though he wears Jets gear. Devin Kupka, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing well. Jets are on a 2-game winning streak. This is my Sauce Gardner T-shirt.
Did you say
jersey.
Sauce Gardner?
Well, sometimes he can be a little suspect when he plays corner.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Sauce Gardner, okay. So you got your Sauce Gardner.
Recently
or Sauce
traded,
Gardner.
by the way. So I'm actually trading this jersey in for a Jermaine Johnson jersey. But we're wearing all white tonight. And the last time I wore this jersey was the Cincinnati game where they won their first game of the season. So maybe we'll continue the winning streak tonight against a very tough New England Patriots team.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're recording this, of course, on a Thursday here, okay? So by the time you hear this, it may already be Friday, so you may be able to point and laugh and say, Devin.
Can you believe it? This is the second time in 2 months that we've had 5 to Go on the same day the Jets play a football game.
Because they were on Monday Night Football recently, right? Which, that's pretty funny. They were on Monday Night Football, but yeah. Jets, I guess, have only one less win than the Falcons now. Our precious Atlanta Falcons here.
We play them in 2 weeks, too.
Go Birds. Okay, so, yeah, but no, anyway, yeah, best of luck to the Jets tonight here, and those listening now, you're probably going, they already won or lost. What are these guys talking about? We'll get into that in a moment, too. Also joining us, of course, 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee, championship-winning mechanic, grinding those gears in the Dawsonville garage, Dano Elliott. How you doing?
Boy, that sounds bad, grinding those gears. That sounds like I'm missing gears instead of engaging gears.
What should I say? What do you do in the Dawsonville garage? I mean, you work on transmissions. I guess I just use fake transmission talk.
Do a lot of transmission gear work and mainly for it's either racing gearboxes or it's gearboxes for more custom applications for your street rod, hot rod, muscle car, and so forth. So, yeah, and it gets in detail sometimes, and sometimes the deal with doing this is like going to the doctor. It's in the diagnosis. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but the diagnosis. And with the way the prices have increased in the last 2-3 years, when you get into parts replacement, you thought you paid a lot of money when you purchased this stuff 5 years ago, but doing repairs on it is going to cost you, in some cases, twice as much again because the prices have just gone up that much.
Yeah, everything seems like, heck, chicken costs more. So certainly repairing a transmission, that's not too hard to imagine there. And all the different places you have to source parts for it. Dan, we've only done this maybe one other time in 8 years of doing this show, okay? If people want to get in touch with you to get their hot rod, their transmission worked on, what is the best way?
The best way to get a hold of me is really the best way is go online. I've got some videos posted and got the information posted on those, and you can find that on YouTube. Okay,
so find Dan Elliott on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube.
And the contact information is there, but we will dare not put it on this YouTube. By the way, this show available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and GoPRN.com. Go ahead.
Not yet, because that's over the holidays. That's what I plan to do, is have a dedicated address and way of getting a hold of me that is better. But I've got the videos on YouTube. I've had them up for quite a while, and I've really been amazed at how many people have subscribed to it and looked
Yeah.
at it based on the fact that I couldn't at the time find what I was looking for a build that I was doing. So Sheena and I did our own video, and I'm amazed the phone calls, as I've said before, from all over the United States of people that are working on these, and it just absolutely blew my mind as far as what problems and then the lack of solutions in most cases, because a lot of this stuff is not made anymore.
Yeah, that's the crazy part when I see, and I think did I mention this last week or not? But I was out driving here, not far from my home in Chamblee, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, and I was on the way somewhere on Tuesday evening, a couple days after the time change, and I saw a 4-car crash here on Claremont Road. All right, one of the vehicles the one that got the most damage was a classic car, an all white. It looked like a 1930s or 40s car. It wasn't like a Bel Air from the 50s or 60s or something like that. It was something older, and I don't know what it was. I was driving right by, and I felt horrible for the person because, I mean, more than likely, any classic car you see is going to have a lot of things that have been restored. Whether that's the case or not, it is hard to do it. It's so custom, and this person's not there driving a 2012 Toyota Camry or something. They're driving this really custom thing out in Atlanta traffic, and they got rear-ended hard. And that's a tough thing to.
I can honestly tell you, Doug, that in the scheme of things anymore, if you've got a really nice, rare car, that you have to know that most of the time you cannot replace the pieces that get damaged, even if you want to. And if you can find the reproduction parts, it's a heartbreak to go through that. And then knowing that you've got to repaint the car all over again. And in a custom application of paint jobs, just the paint job alone, if there's no body work to be done, just the paint job alone can be upwards $25,000 for the paint job.
Oh,
No,
gosh.
no body work. This is just blowing the paint.
I'm just going to stick with my 2017 Ford Edge and call it a day, man. That's where we got to do that. All right. Hey, let's jump into some racing stuff here. Dan, you're always so insightful on so many things outside of racing too, and Devin, you too, because we've got it's tire testing, but it's finding the right combination of tires, horsepower, even lack of rear diffuser, some changes with other parts of the 2026 package, if you will, that NASCAR teams are going to run. That's going on in Bristol as we speak. We opened the show with seeing a car make a couple laps on the track there. Bristol's been kind of this wild card race. Are we going to get single file racing like last March? Are tires falling off like crazy like the fall race in September? We've also had just a few benchmarks of the lawsuit. I mentioned that, but also we've had the announcement, Devin, of the TV schedule for next year. And I say the TV schedule, it's TV networks and start times. The radio networks, it stays consistent with who owns the racetrack. It's a PRN race, Performance Racing Network, where I'm fortunate to get to work, and Motor Racing Network, MRN. And the thing that's inconsistent about those is what local affiliates carry them or whatnot. It's really tough here in Atlanta, but you can always find them online or in the NASCAR app or on Sirius XM Channel 90. Where we get all over the place is we've got 4 different TV providers, and I'm keeping all the USA and NBC races lumped together, Devin. They change channels, but it's like they're the same crew of people, right? It's the same module. It's just the companies are split up. You're going to get into that. But it gets tough because you have that this year we dealt with 4 different providers of them. And do you have this streaming? Is it just over the air? Are you going to have to find it on this cable channel? And then of course you have the CW that handles all the Xfinity races, FS1, all the truck races, which at least there's continuity with those. CW seem to benefit guys from having the races be on an over-the-air stick feed, even though the streaming product for that was okay, an over-the-air stick feed, and being on the same channel each Saturday, no matter the time, each Saturday. And same with FS1, basically with the trucks. There may have been a couple of exceptions in the FS2 deal. So, Dev, they announced what was significant to you. Here we are in November, mid-November, of NASCAR announcing the start times and the TV networks. When you looked at the schedule for 2026, what stuck out?
Really there weren't too many changes when it came to start times this year, and really the TV kind of layout. It's the exact same. I don't remember The one big TV difference next year, outside the whole USA Sports deal, is that Kansas is going to, in the spring, is going to be on Fox. So there's going to be one more over-the-air race this year. Or
So that'll put us at 10, right? I think I counted 10, including the Clash.
Yeah, I think that's the amount, because you have 4 NBC, and you probably have, then if it's 10, you have 6 Fox. First 3 races, the 500, Echo Park, and Coda are going to be on Fox. But the start times for next year really aren't that different. The only ones I noticed that are different, the All-Star race is actually moving to 3 o'clock. Dover Motor Speedway doesn't have
on a
lights
Sunday.
there.
We're racing an All-Star race on a
Sunday.
Sunday. All right, yeah.
Sunday afternoon. Although the All-Star race the past couple of years has been on Sunday night at North Wilkesboro.
That's true.
But
what is the date for the All-Star race?
The All-Star race is the weekend before the Coca-Cola 600.
Okay.
So it's in late May. And speaking of North Wilkesboro, that's actually going to be a night race for the NASCAR Cup Series, 7 o'clock on TNT. Echo Park Speedway, Quaker State 400 is going to be a Sunday night race this year next year compared to this year. One start time that I did find interesting that changed, and it moved up an hour. The Southern 500 is going to begin at 5 o'clock next year.
I saw that.
I like the 6 o'clock start time.
No, hold on. Here's why. What time did that race at? Now, I was in Germany watching this literally overnight up until catching my flight the next morning, basically. It's because it's a 500-mile race on a Sunday night. I think it was ending at, it was 11 o'clock Eastern or whatever.
Though. So
yeah, but people don't want to stay up till 11 and 12 o'clock watching a race. Honestly, they should do that with the Coke 600. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's your grandmother's birthday. You don't want to stay up till 11, 12 o'clock. And remember when these races were on Prime and they released the data. Remember this? No, remember this, Dan? They released the data of the average age of the person watching on Prime or on the average fan. And it was something
most of us don't go to bed at 8 o'clock.
But I'm saying I'm sure it had something to do with that. I'm sure, or the network wanted to fill that time slot. I don't know, but yeah, it's not great having it on Sunday night. Dan, the Southern 500, that used to be on actual Labor Day, right? I mean, that used to be not on the Sunday before, or did it?
No, it used to be. It used to be actually there were blue laws in Darlington, and you could not race on Sunday, so you had to run on Monday. So the blue laws affected it more than anything, and you actually sat at the motel room or went back home and came back on Monday. But most of us stayed and that was a dead day. So to me, it doesn't really matter. Start time is really irrelevant anymore because we have so many abilities to do so many different things. It isn't the way it used to be, where if you didn't catch it on the radio or the TV, you just lost it and you didn't have a replay. You couldn't go back. There were no highlights, no nothing, and you had to rely on the newspaper or whatever source you had the next day to fill you in on what happened. That's not the case anymore.
Man, I remember being out of town before we get to your comment, Devin. I remember being out of town when I was in high school, and so this is pre-smartphone. All right. This, and if we're on a church camp trip, you're not really able to get on the internet. Maybe you could, but there's probably not an internet cafe or some kind of thing to get on the internet when I'm out of town for church or even vacation. You didn't care. The internet wasn't something you need to look at every day. No. And I remember we would go to like a gas station or something. And I would buy USA Today so I could see what happened in the race the day before. How quaint. Now I could be sitting there during the sermon following the live timing and scoring. Okay. I mean, it's just so different, right? I mean, and part of it, that's way easier. And there's so much more that's better about it, but there's something about that anticipation of opening the sports page, or even going on Jayski before social media, going to jayski.com and looking at all the rumors and headlines before everybody just belched it out into the universe on Reddit and on X or something. So now, quickly, Dev, you had a comment about that, and then we're going to get into something else about the schedule before moving on.
Here's a little trivia for y'all. What crown jewel race used to not be run on Sundays besides the Southern 500?
Used to not be. The Coke Zero 400 at Daytona has not been a Sunday race.
Not that one.
Coke 600, World 600. Go ahead.
The Brickyard 400 used to be run on Saturday.
Really? Mm-hmm. Did you know that, Dan?
I probably did, but it didn't matter. I had to be there, so it didn't matter to me because you lose track of the day of the week when you're there after about the second day. So it doesn't matter anymore. But now the thing's changed so much for me is the fact that now you don't have to be there on a Wednesday or a Thursday. You know practice. None of the things that I'm used to relates anymore because it is changed so much. And over my lifetime, I cannot, for the fans that are watching, I cannot begin to tell you how different 2025 is from 1985 in how things were done. Nothing computes anymore.
It is amazing. I listened, and I hadn't for a while, but just this morning here, recording Thursday, November 13th, just this morning I went back to the Scene Vault podcast, maybe catch up with a few interviews and stuff they've done, because I hadn't listened to it in months, frankly. And I was listening to Steve Grissom talk about his first few years and what is now the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, used to be Bush and Xfinity and Nationwide and so forth. And he talked about, just think about it, as everybody was owning their own stuff just about. It was rare you were getting hired by a team to go drive and you're just a driver and you show up with your helmet bag. And if you were working for a team, you were also working on the car. And he talked about having two different primary sponsors, which was different for that time. And how they would bring the car back to the shop, and like I said, the race is Saturday. They may take off Sunday morning or Saturday night. They go to bed. They get in the garage Sunday morning. That's what it was. And they literally have a razor blade taking the paint off so they could paint the other sponsor on. And he was doing it. And they were doing all the work themselves. And it was just him. Well, I've run the All-Pro Series for a few years. Time to go bush racing. And they go bush racing. And it's just so different. Just think about that difference, whereas you have Corey Day, who's running full-time in Xfinity next year. This is no shade on Corey Day. Kyle Larson, they're drivers. They show up, they drive. They're not building anything. All the way back. Connor Zilic ain't building anything, and Chase Elliott wasn't hardly building anything either, maybe a little bit, but not really. So Dev, let's go to the schedule again, because you were sending us links, all right, when this was dropping there, you were sending me links to what other people were, the announcements were, and you pointed out something that was key that NASCAR said in the announcement, and then you being, and I mean this lovingly, nerdy about the TV behind the scenes part, we're putting two things together. So I want to hear the facts first and then the Dev opinion about it.
So when NASCAR put out the TV schedule and times for the 2026 National Series, so all three series, they marked every race bold, and the bold races were the playoff races, and it's the same kind of get up as it has been the past.
Well, it was 10 races. Meaning get up, meaning 10 races. The last 10. Yes. Okay. So NASCAR in their announcement made sure to call the last 10 races the playoffs. All right. Now look, we know that there has not been an announcement about a change to the point system. Technically, because there's a Jeff Gluck poll and a Mark Martin poll and an internet groundswell of grassroots movement to go back to the Winston Cup points. Because we love cigarettes. Okay, no, the Winston Cup points. That there seems to be more momentum amongst social media than actual real life about what the points are going to be. NASCAR made sure it called it a playoff format, though they haven't announced what it is. Okay, so Dev, there are probably many reasons for that, but you have a TV reason that may factor in, even though they've said TV has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, NBC might say that they have nothing to do with it anymore, and they don't want to influence the championship because they've actually spun off I wouldn't say they spun off their TV contract, but they have spun off their NASCAR coverage to USA Network, who is a completely separate entity of NBC and NBC Sports now. So the NASCAR on the NBC/USA portion is now completely owned by Versant, which owns USA Network. All the NBCU spun off broadcast or cable channels, excuse me.
And to be clear, cable channels. So cable. NBC, like news, right? And NBC Sports, so we watch Thursday Night Football, are still owned by NBC Universal.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So what NBC's doing, they're relaunching NBC Sports Network. They're only bringing the NFL, NBA, MLB, and a few other things with it. But all the other remaining properties are going with USA Sports and Versant.
Okay, so NBC is launching an NBC Sports Network, but they're not putting any NASCAR races
Nope.
on it.
Nope.
They're calling it USA Sports. So, okay, now granted, this is still going to maybe come out of the same nucleus somewhere. You're still going to see Parker Kligerman on pit road or Lee Diffie in the booth or something like that for across those races. However, Dev, if there were no playoffs next year, and I'm taking your point and rephrasing it so you could clarify. If there were no playoffs next year, if there were old Winston Cup points, race 1 to 36, why do you think Versant would be against that versus NBC?
Well, here's the thing. We look at the TV contract and how it's set up nowadays. You have 5 broadcast partners, but this year you had 4. You had Fox, Prime, Turner, and NBC. Fox has the Daytona 500, the Clash, Echo Park, Talladega race, and the All-Star race as well. Prime has the Coke 600, and they also are going to have the San Diego Street Course race, 2 big races that are going to be on next year and then that they had this year. Turner has the Brickyard 400 and the in-season tournament. NBC/USA had the Cup Series championship. Now Versant's technically a fifth broadcast partner, right? So I mentioned what all of those broadcast partners are getting throughout a NASCAR Cup Series season, right? Well, if you're Versant, NBC still has the championship, but what would Versant have? Guess what? They have a lot of those races that would be otherwise playoff races. So kind of makes sense for Versant to want to keep the playoffs, which hence why I think the playoff format might get altered a little bit, but it's still going to be a playoff format.
Yeah.
Because Versant wants something in their piece of the...
It's got no crown jewel. Well. It's got no playoff without there being play. And Versant. So it's safe to call Versant USA Sports, right?
Yep.
Because it won't be a non-Versant race until it's actually on real NBC. That last, it's more than the third, but that last chunk of the season is USA, and then the last few races, NBC Sports.
Here's another thing that doesn't look good for NASCAR is that USA Sports is actually going to produce the NBC races next year because NBC only has 4 races going forward a year.
Right. But you got to think that that's coming out of the same, I would hope, and we don't know, but it's like it's got to be coming out of the same nucleus, right? It's not going to be some radically different.
No, it probably won't be radically different, and I would imagine the graphics are going to stay with USA, and it's going to be the same thing with Prime. Prime actually technically doesn't. I mean, Prime produces their own broadcasts, but they hire out to a lot of people that were used to be with NBC. So a lot of those people are with the Prime broadcasts. But I think this makes things interesting in a couple of years when NASCAR goes to renegotiate their TV contract.
Yeah, well, we're only in year 2, beginning of year 2 next year
they gave all
of the
their
7
stuff
year.
to USA. So that's
say that
the
again.
thing, how I look at it. Well, I think when you look at it for the TV aspect of the contract, is NBC going to re-up because they essentially were okay with giving all of their coverage rights to USA Sports.
Yes.
So they don't
own
that.
What does this say?
Anymore.
Okay, so what does this say? And we said this last week about NASCAR's place in the pecking order. If during the championship race, I'm going to say it again, championship race, you didn't even have 2 of the championship 4 interviewed after the race, nor did you have the race winner interviewed. Okay? Ryan Blaney, by the way. Ryan Blaney. Give man some credit. Now, what you're telling me is that USA Sports, like even the NASCAR races on NBC, are not going to be technically produced by NBC Sports. In other words, there's going to be distance in between the NBC Sports that everybody knows. They didn't want NASCAR going with it to the NBC Sports network even. What does that say about NASCAR's place in the pecking order, at least to NBC? And that's a tough pill to swallow because I feel like NBC, despite putting so many races over since 2015 on NBCSN when it was still a thing before, and that seemed to be to the sports detriment, but NBC went all in. They had studio show, they had a lot of great programming, they had a great online product. A lot of they were Dustin Long and different people like that writing for. And it seems like they're distancing themselves more from Zoom.
They made major cuts after the 2020. NBC Sports made major cuts to their motorsports division after the 2020 year was up. And I would honestly say out of all the broadcast partners, they definitely put the least amount in to their coverage, I would say, out of any of the partners, Turner, Fox. Because, I mean, Fox even does a big... Put it this way. Across the NBC networks, there's no NASCAR shows. Fox has the Kevin Harvick show. Prime does all those things.
Well, yeah, but Fox cut way back, too.
Fox has. There's no doubt Fox has. But I'm saying, even if you look at it today, Turner has Bleacher Report that does that helps out with NASCAR. Prime does those things with NASCAR. Fox has that show with Kevin Harvick, but the USA and NBC
Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour
doesn't have anything going for it. They don't do Motor Mouths in America anymore. I don't even know if they do the NASCAR on NBC podcast anymore either.
No, they don't.
They don't. Out that, it's just kind of... But the NBC Sports has redone their sports profiling the past 6 years, so things are different over there. But still, it's kind of odd.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. NASCAR, and it has really for the last longer than people want to admit, become a niche sport again, and with that comes less money for everybody, for drivers, for teams, for everyone. I don't know, we're going to get into lawsuit stuff, and there are people making tons of money, but even the tons of money they're making now, compared to what it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, it's not even...
Not to dwell on this too much longer, but what I'm really curious to see what happens when they go to renegotiate in 2030 at the end of this decade.
Yeah, that's a long time. Yeah,
I know, but I'm thinking about this because the reason NASCAR has this contract set up this way is to take in more money, right? We've seen some of the financials that NASCAR has. The ratings, a lot of these races are on cable, have been going downhill and are continuing to go downhill. How are they going to renegotiate in 6 years or even 5 years and say, all right, we want a higher value number, more money that we're bringing in than what we currently do with this TV contract when the numbers are going to be lower than when they started this current contract? That's where I'm wondering where things are going with that. Because I feel like money could be an issue on the next contract.
But, we don't know. So let's go to 7 years. Let's go 2015 is when the deal started before this one, right? Is that right? Yeah, 2015. That's when NBC first came in. Was their second deal within that? But let's go back to me, there was a big era change when you went from ESPN to NBC, all right? The second half of the season. Okay. Think about how much has changed. And if you had told the world in 2015 or 16 that Prime Video was going to have NASCAR races and that TNT is believable because they already did, but that Max was going to be a big deal, and Court TV or True TV, excuse me, we're going to be hosting qualifying and Prime Video and all this stuff. What? Things will radically change, more than likely, between now and the end of this deal. So when you say you're curious to see, it could be that there's so many streaming services stepping on each other that they're going to be in a bidding war, or it could be that NASCAR, has a situation similar to, where when you go all streaming. What was the thing that just got announced recently? Formula One is going to Apple TV, right? Formula One's going to Apple TV, and a lot of people think this is a mistake because that has killed the MLS's surge in popularity because not enough people have Apple TV, but they went for the money, and F1 went for the money. NASCAR in this deal went for the money, but there's still enough of it outside of streaming to that is going to be interesting to see, right? But I think it'll be radically different between now and 2030 too. 2030 also. I mean, Dan, it's been Devin and me just back and forth yakking here. What are your thoughts on this deal? Because I feel like in some ways you represent old and new school very well because it's not like you aren't on connected things, but at the same time you're very in tune to what your demographic is watching and how they take things. Are with so many races being on cable, do you think even people care at all? Do most people have cable that you think is NASCAR's heart demographic, which frankly is men in their 60s?
I think that this has changed so much that whether you want to be on cable or not, you're going to be forced to be, and you can't even conceive in 5 years what's going to change in 5 years. And the one thing I wanted to bring up is Doug may know this, but what has the price of advertising rates
Oh, I
increased
don't know.
to over? And see, that's an area that we're not even considering, because you're looking 6 years into the future, and we don't know what the advertising rates are and what value that you can bring to NASCAR by how much time these sponsors get on TV time, because that's all kept up with, and it can be kept up even better now, and showing a sponsor what that value would be if they had to buy advertising time to show their product.
Yeah, I would.
It would be
Yeah,
phenomenal. It would be phenomenal. It's just like looking at this Bud Light can, and this can's from the Natties, but in 6 years showing what this sponsor is would have paid for the TV time they got, and they know down to the second how much TV time either Bud or whatever the sponsor may be. They've got it down to the second and can calculate and give you this amount of what that would be in real money to advertise.
I think it's so much too about what they get outside of the actual TV broadcast. Drivers are measured in the number of followers and engagement and reach that they have,
It's
more
all
than
across
their
the
car.
board, and,
Yeah,
and that's just it. You can't even fathom how many different directions this goes in.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
every
and two, like it's a new day and age for sponsorship. Like during the Prime broadcasts, they can have an advertisement. Let's just say Cinnamon Toast Crunch is sponsoring Chris Buescher next year, right? During one of those races.
yeah.
They might have a thing that pops up in the bottom of the screen. You scan the QR code, boom, right there. You can add it to your Amazon cart right there. Add Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and that can be there by the time the end of the day arrives. So it's like a new day in advertising. There's just so many different ways you can do it.
AI is
And you
going
can
to
go
carry
direct
this
to
6
consumer.
ways to sundown, and AI is going to bring this in areas that you have no idea there's even areas.
Yeah. And that's why, again, when you're talking about a TV deal and whatever, 20, 30 something, yeah, that just we need to wait because we don't even know, we'll be watching it all in our AI glasses or something like that. I mean, by then, who knows? Who knows? It may not be much different. The thing is, it's got to adapt and change. And I think that there's so many opinions as to where that's going to go, and you have to plan so far ahead. It's hard. It's like you got to be in all directions at once if you want to succeed. And that's something that I'm in the media industry, have been my whole career, and I could sit there and talk forever about people trying to chase the next thing. Hey, to that point, when I started in 2004, it was like, oh, cute, we have a website. And then it quickly became everything on the web, on the web, on the web. Now, social media was out by that time, but social media was a recreation. Now, social media is everything. First, it's just get information out on Twitter, right? And now X, little shards of information, it exposes your brand. Now it's more, you need videos out there, videos. Okay, so at the same time, you're building the website. Well, while you're building the website and you're building the social media, then apps came out. Smartphones came out first. It was a few years into smartphones that you really wanted to have apps for every single place. All right. So an app for every station, and some stations have more than one app. All right. Or some, products have more than one app. And then you're building these apps. I helped develop a separate traffic app for my former employer. This. Okay. Well, now it's, we want the app, and you don't even think about the website as much. But then it's just get this content out on social media, get this videos, and we need Reels and YouTube. Oh, everybody's watching YouTube. The thing is by the time the people that didn't invent YouTube get on YouTube. Okay, so YouTube invented itself. 2005 is when that went live, if I'm not mistaken. 2005, right? Social, Facebook was out in 03, 04. X was out just after those times. They were the cutting edge. All the media or the sports or whoever are jumping on these deals, and some of them know how to push the buttons, but most media, frankly, do not, because it's the old media. It's not the social media.
I will say.
So I feel like NASCAR is the old media. Okay, as much as they do great stuff in their own channel, I'll be done in 1 second, Devin. As much as they're great, and they've got this fast channel, they've got a great series coming out November 17th about the young drivers. All this, it's like people have already moved on, and they're trying to catch them.
I look at a lot of news stations, right? You can even look at 11 Alive, for instance, and some major news outlets, let's say like NBC News, right? There's a way to do content delivery, and there's a new way to do it. Like, we haven't seen it with a lot of local news stations do it. I've seen it. I've been to a bunch of news stations' Instagram pages, right? You go to NBC News, they'll do packages that are designed specifically for Reels. Some teams, let's take it back to NASCAR. Some teams, NASCAR honestly has really stepped up their social media game the past 3
It has.
4
That
years.
whole content production facility has gotten a lot better, but it should have been there earlier. They were still rolling in TV money, man.
But social media in the past 10 years, you can look at posts you liked 10 years ago on Instagram, and I see, let's just take the Jets for instance. I mean, they would probably take a picture of this hat, and this would be suitable to be just posted 10 years ago. But now you got to have a graphic for everything, right? I mean, even look at our Facebook page. That stuff.
No. I tell you what. Look at the difference between anything I post versus anything Devin posts. Mm-hmm. That's your answer right there.
Yeah,
I ain't got time to do all that crap.
Look what I would post. I'm waiting for
Dan's post is watch my YouTube video that doesn't exist yet to get in touch with me. That's
yeah, it does exist, but I'm waiting for an animated version of our podcast here.
Animated version. Hey, so I'm not even kidding. Here on Riverside, I could hit an effect right now and animate us. Can I do it now, or do I have to do it in post? I'm pretty sure I certainly could do it in post. Yeah, so we're not going to do that right now, but just you can. Hey, all right. So the point of the story here is we're not doom and gloom. We are not the doom and gloom podcast. All right. NASCAR by itself, without anything changing, is still a strong brand. It's just not what it used to be. You're still getting a couple million people watch every week. It's just, I don't know what you retain and what that looks like in 10 years. All right. And are these teams really losing money or not and all that stuff? Let's get it. That could be another thing. Okay. So, but it's certainly Devin without you. And I want to put it right here. But we don't say the tagline of this podcast enough: expert analysis, unfiltered. You could argue about what we're experts in or not. One thing that Devin, I call him a super racing fanalist. All right. He's an analyst, not a fanalist. I called him that when he was still just a fan, okay? He's our analyst. Devin is so good at paying attention to the close details on the TV side. And it wasn't without his analysis of that we wouldn't even realize this Versant thing and all, because I don't want you to pay attention to it being Versant or a separate network. Maybe they will soon. And Devin's connected the dots. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I wanted to say this. I feel that NASCAR is stronger than they've ever been. It's just that the demographic is ever changing, and right now we're in a radical change of demographics that we're trying to hit a moving target that technology can't keep up with.
I would agree with Dan on that. I feel like NASCAR. I'll say this: NASCAR is at a very stable point where we look season to season nowadays, and it's pretty stable. There isn't something wild that absolutely happens. This isn't what it was like 20, 30 years ago. But I will say the fan base is more divided, or maybe just online.
I think everything is more divided everywhere now.
NASCAR seems pretty stable. Fans will argue that, but it feels it's a stable product. This is the most stable I've seen it.
Okay, so now I don't want to totally disagree, but how do you factor in the 14% drop in TV ratings? Is that just the move to streaming? Like, because NASCAR apparently, I haven't watched the State of the Sport address, full disclosure, but just in reading the analysis of it and things about it, the dignitaries in NASCAR said they were expecting a drop off in ratings because of the move to streaming in the midpoint of the season. So, help me out, Devin, with statement.
If I said this, I think, early in the year, and maybe even 2 years ago when they signed this TV deal, or when the TV schedule came out last year with how many races were on cable, I expected going into the season to see a double-digit drop in viewership this year. I really did.
Yeah, you
Turner,
did say that.
USA, the heavy FS1 coming in. There's another factor that played into a role, and that played more or less in later in the season, was the advertising of the second half of this year's races. primarily the USA NBC deal just not being heavily advertised, but a majority of the drop is coming from all the races being on cable.
Okay. So we'll put a pin in that right there. I think sponsorship wise, for sure, stability. Car and truck count wise, it was a little paltry in trucks. Xfinity Series seems strong. The Truck Series, I think at the front end of the Truck Series is strong. Cup Series, you don't have a lot of drivers moving around. You don't have teams all shutting down, things like that. As much as you said, Devin, a couple of weeks ago, the charter system has made the barriers to entry for drivers and teams tough. It also has made the barriers to entry for dropping out harder, too. All right, so if it's harder to get in, it's harder to drop out. Sponsorship, you don't see a lot of blank cars. I agree with you on that. One more thing, Devin. I want to move on quickly to the other two deals. One thing we didn't even mention
here. For the first time in 20 years, NASCAR has added another manufacturer in Dodge coming back.
Great point. And Ram. And Ram to the trucks, which is Stellantis and Dodge. But I'm just saying, yes, we got to call it right, call it Ram. That's a good point. All right, so now, on the lawsuit front, we're 40 minutes in, and we've done like one of the three main things we're going to talk about today. All right, so we're going to turn the corner here because we don't need to do our 15-minute podcast with no big developments in the offseason, okay? So on the lawsuit, what has transpired in the last week or so is there's been no settlement. When it seemed like 2 weeks ago one was close, I think things have started to spread apart a little bit again just from the reporting. The people I read for the reporting on this, The Athletic, Jeff Gluck, Jordan Bianchi, the main ones, Matt Weaver, motorsport.com, as poorly coded as that website is, where it always refreshes while I'm reading the story. That's not his fault. He does great writing on there. Matt Weaver, and then Bob Pockris. All right, I know there's others, but those are the three that I see in my feed the most that I dig into. From what I've seen from them, we're still heading to a December 1st start date. Well, we're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, so we're almost there to December 1st. That's crazy to me. They anticipate, they being the people involved in the case, that it would be about a 10-day trial. There'll be a jury selection. There'll be a jury trial. Now, it's civil, but it's still a trial. Now, 10-day trial, that doesn't include like it getting appealed the heck out of forever. The judge of the case, Kenneth Bell, I find to be the most interesting figure in this case, mainly for how sensible he is. He has gone from, it looked like he was sort of siding with the teams, and then it looked like he was swinging NASCAR's way. And then it swings. It just keeps going back and forth to make me think that however this thing gets administered, now granted it's in a jury's hands, will be fair. That's Doug's opinion. All right, it just the way he's doing it. It seems like he has never done one thing where it looks like it's only going to go one side's way. And one thing that's transpired this week that's really interesting is that NASCAR basically enlisted Roger Penske and Rick Hendrick to provide statements to kind of help back up their assertion about the deal going fairly. All right. They provided some statements, and then 2311 in front row said, hey, well, we want them to testify. And now the Penske and Hendrick camps are pushing back. We don't need to testify. The judge has said, yes, you do. Judge Bell said, yes, you do need to testify. Then they tried to say, well, don't ask us these questions then. We want to keep this very vague because they didn't want to take sides. In fact, they said in one of their statements, I forget which one, taking a side will be detrimental to our business. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what they said. All right, that's not an opinion. That's what was said. Okay. The judges said, no, those questions are not off limits. You will have to answer whatever question gets asked. Granted, you're allowed to plead the fifth, of course. You don't have to. You're not compelled to answer under oath. You're not going to perjure yourself, whatever. So they are going to have to, as of now, if there is a trial, have to testify at some point. Dan Elliott. Now we're going to get into. I mean, this isn't black helicopter talk. We're just going to get into. This is monumental, though. You're taking two gentlemen who are billionaires, all right, who have seen the success that they've seen in NASCAR and the success they've seen in the business world, who have tried to stay out of this and have tried to, it seems like, be peacekeepers in a way, and now they're kind of forced to go on the stand. Dan, what do you think? I mean, is this going to get messier, or finally are they going to like cry uncle and settle this thing? Where do you see this going over the next few weeks, man?
I already thought that it would be settled by now anyway, and
me too.
I can't see any good coming out of this at all, going forward on what little I've seen, and trust me on this. This is my opinion about what I've read, and I know very, very, very little of the facts of the case because I have not been there and I have not kept up with the powers to be who are reporting supposedly the facts, because all we can do is read what's put out to press or put
Right.
out.
We're not sitting in court. Yeah.
We're not sitting in court. Okay. So with that being said, I can't even fathom what Pandora's box this is going to open. By one question is going to lead to something else. It's going to lead to something else. And I think the whole idea maybe of this, and what they fear is that once you answer one question, it leads to another, and unlocks more and more layers of what we've seen build up over the course of the time that the charters were conceived to now, and how they're effectually being operated, or the integral components of which we know nothing about. And enlightening the public on this is what I would love to know anyway. There's stuff in this that I sure would love to know, how this or that or what's in there, how it came about, where it proceeds from here, because I read an article the other day, and it was on the internet. I can't take it for gospel, but it was talking about the comment that Jeff Gordon had made, that Hendrick had not made any money in the last 10 years. Well, you got to look at,
and that was well documented. Just to pause there, that comment was well documented. I heard it. I forget which interview. I'm sorry, I'm not attributing it. Yeah,
but this goes to the fact of who negotiated the deal in the beginning with NASCAR. This gets into the really the main crust.
He was part of the negotiating team. That's what you're getting at. He was part of the negotiated team. That's not an opinion. These are facts. Okay. We haven't said any opinions here about it.
But I'm just saying, this is the stuff that's going to come out, is whoever negotiated that, if they've lost money in the last 10 years, then somebody needs to look at who negotiated this and what was negotiated, because something don't add up.
So we haven't seen the returns yet from the first year of the new charter deal, which is this year. When Jeff Gordon made the comment about the last 10 years.
Yeah, but Doug, you've seen no returns
just real
on nothing, because what has been put out to public, the only thing we have is just the comment that we've not made any money in 10 years. Okay, so we've not seen any of the books to know what that was spent on, how it was spent, or what money they got, what money they did. We don't know any of the details of that.
Hey,
and I think the whole crust of this.
Hey, I want to tell you something. You know who did make money in the last 10 years? You know who did make money?
I'd say everybody made money in the last 10 years, or they wouldn't be doing it.
You know who for sure made money, and we know they did because they said it? B.J. McLeod. That's who made some daggone money right there. All right, because B.J. McLeod sold that charter and he had to split it. There were several different parties involved there, including Matt Tift and whatever, Joe Falk, I believe. B.J. McLeod made some money because last year, or was it last year or early this year? I think it was last year. Corey LaJoie, Stacking Pennies, did an on-site interview with B.J. McLeod after he'd sold his deal. And he has other businesses too. My man is doing well, all right, because he ran a lean team for that amount of time. And Rick Ware's making money too, all right? These guys, so you got to choose where you spend that money for sure.
Yeah, but
I know that's that's a red herring, but
if that's the only way you can make money is to sell out, then what next? You got to sell out to make money.
Well, part of the value of the charters, though, hey, why is and I'm just making up a number. Why are NFL franchises worth $1 billion? It's not because they make $1 billion a year. It's because that's how much it's worth if you sell it. My condo is worth the number it's worth. It's not paying me right now. It's if I ever wanted to sell it. I love seeing that piece of paper every year, the property tax. Ooh, it's worth more. Even though it means I have to pay more taxes. I mean, that's the reason of the charters.
If you got a franchise in the NFL, do you own it forever, or are you in a deal to where in so many years that it goes back to whoever? Okay.
The crux of the charter agreement here. The crux of the charter agreement. I agree. Yeah. So look, this could go all sorts of ways,
details, and we don't know the details, and that's what I think is what they're trying to get to. And this would be, if I were NASCAR, what I'd be afraid of is what's going to come out of this that's going to hurt me.
And the teams. I mean, obviously. So look, part of the game
I
here.
think there's less
if
than
you're
the teams,
the Hendrick crowd or the Penske. Well, it's going to hurt everybody. That's what you said, right? I talked to everybody.
It's going to hurt everybody, but what's going to come out, I feel, will probably hurt NASCAR more than it will the teams.
So why would Roger Penske and the Hendrick crowd and Rick Hendrick not want to testify then?
Because anything that comes out is going to be, there's just it. You don't know what's going to come out of it. You don't have any idea of what's
fair. You don't know where it's an unpredicted outcome. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Devin.
I saw something, I think it was a few weeks ago, when they were trying to get like the people that were going to speak at the trial and reveal stuff. F1 and Liberty Media were hesitant about that stuff. I think that's very big, and that's actually kind of I wouldn't say helpful or hurtful to NASCAR's case, but I think that's very interesting that even though this is just a NASCAR deal, F1 has a say a little bit in this too, to where they don't want to. There's certain information that both NASCAR and F1 don't want getting out about both their racing leagues. So I think that was very interesting what I saw a few weeks ago.
Let me see what they said. No, but okay, hold on. Here's what from a week. No, that's not who I want to read it from because they're garbage. Hold on, I know what you're talking about. So where is that? So they're not going to have to testify, but so teams drop legal overture against F1 owners. Hold on, let's see what Sporting News says here. I just want to make sure I have this right. This is from Matt Weaver, Sporting News for May of this year. No, that's too far ago. But yeah, it's interesting that there's interplay between the two, right? But here's why, because and the 2311 and Front Row are arguing that NASCAR has a monopoly basically over this kind of racing. NASCAR's argument was, well, you could go race in F1, you could go race in IndyCar, you could go race late models if you want. We don't have a monopoly of racing, but they're arguing this is a unique form of motorsports, and we have to own these cars to race in it, and these cars don't even belong to us because I can't take it to race it somewhere else. That's what they're. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. That's their argument. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, I'll say this too. Think about SRX, right? Not necessarily a direct competitor with NASCAR, but SRX. With SRX and what happened to them is actually really beneficial to NASCAR when it comes to this court case, right? NASCAR could have said to the teams, hey, I don't want to see Brad Keselowski. I don't want to see Chase Elliott. I don't want to see Kyle Busch racing in the SRX series. They went ahead and did it anyways, right?
I think there was I think there were some hard feelings from NASCAR about SRX.
But what happened to SRX at the end of the day? They don't exist anymore. And that was they only raced for what, 2-3 years? So
3 seasons.
You can argue NASCAR is a monopoly, but look at when competitors rise up like the SRX series and look at how they did on their own. They didn't do terribly awesome outside the first year. So to say that NASCAR is a monopoly, I think you have to look at other competitors to see how they're doing. I mean, take a look at IndyCar, right? IndyCar was big before their split. They split, and they've never been the same since then. Right? So I think when you look at it, and it's the same thing with the NFL too. What about the competing football leagues that are not college and competing pro leagues? How many of those have fizzled out? The original XFL fizzled out. The AA, I forget what the league was called. Atlanta used to have a team back in 2019. That fizzled out. So I think it's really tough to call NASCAR a monopoly because I don't think they go outwardly to stop other series. Because I think if you were to start a run-up series nowadays, it would be very difficult to get it to a very high level.
All right, so look right there, and just to point out that a very well thought out opinion. Okay, that's just we're not weighing it. We don't know. All right, we're trying our best to thread what's fact and what's opinion. That's a great opinion, right? Is it's hard to argue that there haven't been other series that have risen up. They just haven't been successful. The argument the teams would make, of course, but we have a race car you're forcing us to buy off of a shelf and then telling us we can't race it anywhere else, even though we have to buy it, and that's going to be a tough one to swallow if they don't settle real quick. All right, look, so where we're at is it seemed like things NASCAR a few weeks ago came out. They were like really trying to give the peace offering deal. That was definitely a PR push. So Steve O'Donnell's going on the Dale Jr. download, and they're speaking really openly about the lawsuit. That was the peace offering. It seems like that's an opinion, but seems like things have gotten icy again when they couldn't agree to settle a couple of weeks ago before the championship race in Phoenix, which the race was won by Ryan Blaney, by the way. Ryan Blaney, okay, who didn't get interviewed on TV. All right, so it seems like this is steamrolling toward the trial, and it's a game of chicken here. And as Kenneth Bell, the judge, said, and it's been said many times, this is not an opinion. He said it. He really recommends they settle because this could end up hurting a lot of people in the sport if they do not, because of how the verdict could go. So, all right, there's a tire test going on at Bristol. It's very emblematic of what this season has been. Of just, we need change, we want change. And NASCAR and Goodyear have been working toward change, and they've been taking bigger swings at things, but it's hard to do that mid-season sometimes. They're testing a 750 horsepower package and have already announced higher horsepower at shorter tracks next year, correct? So they've been tested at Bristol. We opened the podcast with a couple of laps from an Earth Cam or whatever camera that was at Bristol. All right, so I'm going to pull up here and try to share my screen really quick, and you're just going to have to bear with me, folks. I'm sharing it for people that are let's see here. Hold on a second. All right. Share. Also share audio's on. Okay. So, here's what Ryan Preece had to say after day one in testing. Everybody, y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, here's what Ryan Preece had to say day one testing.
We just got done testing here at Bristol Motor Speedway. I feel like I did 500 laps. Brandon, tell us about your day up there.
Well, it was pretty warm. Yeah.
It was pretty cold where we were. But, yeah, all done for day one testing here at Bristol. Feel like finding the right direction. So.
All right, so the only opinion we got there after all that is I feel like we're finding the right direction. Okay, but Ryan Preece there, and that's just the first comments I saw. Drivers, there's an interesting comment that Christopher Bell said that Matt Weaver wrote up motorsport.com, which is he thinks the Cup cars need to do something similar to what the Xfinity cars are doing. And it's hard to do it on the Cup car platform because Cup car platform is nose up, tail down, whereas Xfinity cars are tail down, nose up. All right. And it seems like the Xfinity cars, the smaller tires, the drivers are flexing that car around the track more. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. Cup car, it's set up a whole different way, and it's hard to achieve the same results on that platform. Ryan Preece and Alex Bowman and Bubba Wallace, one for each manufacturer there, they tested different Goodyear tire combinations, trying to find the sweet spot between, holy cow, tire fall off, oh my God, people are getting flat tires every 20 laps, like the September race, and then the spring race where it seemed like they were driving on bricks and there was no tire fall off. They're trying to find the balance between those. Also trying to create a situation where you can use multiple lines, more throttle response, hence more horsepower. Maybe and here's the big one that I didn't see coming, Dan and Dev. At least part of the test, there are pictures of Ryan Preece's car with no rear diffuser on it. Also, they're running the 2026 Chevy body, which hasn't been debuted yet. They're not great pictures of that on Al Gore's internet here. So, Dan, they're taking stabs at it. Do you think, I'm going to ask transmission guy here, all right, the guy who's won a championship as a mechanic in the NASCAR Cup Series. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen. Dan, do you like the direction they're trying to go with this?
Without being there and seeing what they're doing, but there is such a difference. And we're comparing, let me get this straight. We're comparing what they're doing with Xfinity versus Cup and then trying to get the Xfinity cars better. We're trying to get the Cup cars better across the board. We're trying to make the racing better at Bristol. Is that the way I understand it?
But yeah, they're testing Cup cars at Bristol, trying to improve the short track and I think eventually the road course package too. Yes.
All right, because to me, you have so many things you've got to duplicate here, because to have a successful test, you've got to figure that the Bristol race, the early Bristol race, and the one that's in the playoffs, do you suspect that those cars are going to be? Do you suspect that your data you're going to get between those two races is going to be the same or not?
I mean, yeah, obviously different temperature. I think they're trying to find, Matt Weaver's motorsport.com. I keep
I
mentioning
understand
him.
what
I
they're
promise
trying.
he's not the only person I read, but they're
I understand what they're trying to
good.
do to make the racing better, but trying to duplicate the conditions, and there's only so much data you can draw from this. And I look at this as the early race at Bristol and the one that's in the playoffs is a different data, because you've got to understand that this time we had four drivers that were trying to push the cars to the absolute limits and beyond. All right, so I feel like that deal was some of your tire trouble was because these Cup cars have so much brake that the other series and the old Cup cars didn't have. So that lends to the tire failure. So we've got several things we're looking at to try to make the package better. And this balance of braking, and even with the Cup cars, with having a transmission that they now shift, helps the braking, but you're using that and a ton of brakes, and you're trying to develop a tire that's better. There is so much criteria here that we don't understand, that there is no way, even with the testing they're doing at Bristol, I don't know that you can do enough testing to find out what you need to find out before the season starts next year.
Gotcha. Yeah. And hey, Dev, was Dan's audio cutting out, or is that on my end?
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Is cutting out. Okay, we're going to trust that recorded locally, but some of that was cutting out. But it is tough to find the sweet spot here. Just real quickly, because we're already crossing an hour here. Dev, let's kind of round the corner on this.
Shouldn't tire tests, if we're trying to make the racing better, shouldn't tire tests be conductive of conditions that you're going to have around those races? Like, this it's a little bit cold right now in Bristol, probably colder than what it will be for the spring race, but if they're doing a summer night race test, shouldn't that be conductive maybe of some warmer conditions?
What I started to say earlier is they're trying to cut, according to Matt Weaver, what he's talked about with drivers and people, again, he's on the ground each week, okay? And he wrote up the article came out before this test, but he wrote it based on this test happening. They're trying to come up with something that in general is less temperature sensitive, to where you don't have a 10-degree warm-up from practice to race day and then bam, the tires do this. That's the idea, all right? And I will say the spring race was, was pretty darn chilly, honestly, even there in the spring. I mean, it was chilly in that spring race, okay? So them testing in November being a little bit milder too after this cold front moved through. I mean, it may not be extremely different, but they're trying to make it not be as much of a factor. Nonetheless, they're trying to create this balance between fall off without the tires just falling completely off. That's the idea, because when you have it so random, like they're driving around to grenades, basically, you're not sure if you're getting the best results or not. That you don't want to have the race just be a whole crap show. And honestly, I kind of like the chaos. I like that certainly more than everybody running single file and running the exact same lap times within a few tenths of each other, first to last. But we'll see what they come up with. I got to say, Dev, you and I were both there at the night race. I still think I've had 2 months to think about it now. In fact, almost exactly 2 months to think about it. That was a blast. I had a blast covering it as a pit reporter, being there at Ty Gibbs' pit. That was the best chance that gentleman had to win all year. And it's because until he missed pit road at the end of that race, he had that race won because he knew how, as a young driver no less, to manage those tires. That was exciting to me. Do you feel the same way 60 days removed or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good race in the fall race. It was a lot better than it was in the spring. So,
the
conditions were just right. The conditions
spring was tough.
Remember, the conditions in this year's spring race were warmer than last year's Food City 500 at Bristol.
Way
which
warmer.
was run a month earlier.
And the conditions in practice. Go ahead.
But
Sorry,
the
I didn't
conditions were
interrupt.
cooler in the night race this year. Somewhere
Yes, and remember, for the spring race, the Saturday practice, the tires were falling off, and we were like salivating. Oh, man, we're going to have ourselves a race Sunday. Got 10 degrees warmer or whatever it was. Totally different. And that they're trying to prevent that. 10 degrees difference from cording to bricks. You know, that's weird, right? Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I think it also, and not anybody has said very much about this whatsoever that I've seen, is the fact that not only do you have to have tire management, but you have to have brake management, because the transfer of the temperatures from the brakes to these tires and that right front takes all kinds of abuse. So you add the factor of brake temperatures as well as tire temperatures and wear and so forth factors into what we're seeing. And I've not heard anybody talking about, because these cars have so much more brake than what I'm accustomed to with the Gen 6 car versus the Gen 7 car. And it's phenomenal. And no one is talking about the fact of I've not heard it that much about the temperature transfer and what this does to the tires.
That's a great point. And that played into Chase Briscoe's cut tire during the Phoenix race, I think it was. You know, the temperature transfer, to your point. By the way, we are an hour and 6 minutes into this podcast. We're going to wrap it up right now. This podcast taking place, I think, 11 days after the season concluded. And we have not once talked about Denny Hamlin losing the championship or Kyle Larson winning it. Okay, so we may have said their names inadvertently a couple of times, but it shows how that I want to use that to prove a point. It shows how all this outrage, this too shall pass. And do we want to radically change things because we're butthurt about something that we're all enraged about in the moment? And one thing I want to point, if we could do something different as a NASCAR well, probably the whole nation or the whole world, but let's just say NASCAR nation, because this is the 5 to Go podcast. We're so uptight about all these things. We go week to week, and I'll listen to the podcast universe and listen to the main podcasts that most NASCAR fans listen to. And it's like, we need to change this, and overtime that, caution flag that, blah, 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 blah. And we do it here some. I feel like we're better than others. I feel like we're a little more tempered than others, okay? And it's like, gosh, if you did everything that pissed you off or to unpiss you off, we would change the rules every single week in this sport. We would change them we would have no points. We would have all-star 1 week. We'd have all super speedways, all short tracks, only mile and a half. We'd never race the Roval. Wait, no, we'd only race the Roval. I mean, so, and I'm making an exaggeration, but
I don't.
Here
I
we talked about
right
it. We
on.
were a little upset today about some stuff with TV and some stuff with this. Today we just did some analysis. And I already missed racing. And on Sunday when I was driving back from church, I was upset there wasn't a race on Sunday afternoon, all right? Because nothing cleanses the palate for me before a work week like a nice race. Go ahead, Devin. I'm sorry.
No, I think you were spot on with your analysis right there. I didn't think you were.
That was an opinion.
I know you might come off as you're exaggerating, but I think that's actually representative of what some of these people think.
It's just, and the reason why it gets this way, it amplifies, because it used to be the only people's opinions you heard were like true insiders to the sport. And I'd like to think of myself as one. The truth is, I went to 7 races this year. All right, you know, I mean, you heard editorialists of people who are on the beat every day. You didn't have all these drivers with podcasts, all these people, that were, and then social media where you hear every fan that wants to have an opinion can put it out there. It used to be you didn't hear that. You'd hear it from your friends, and you'd hear it from trained editorialists and people very close to the sport. So there were only a few opinions to choose from. Now there are a bunch, and they get amplified. And by the way, your algorithm that is not putting the show at the top of your feed, probably because we're not controversial enough, okay? Your algorithm is training you to click on the thing, and Devin, you know this, the thing that we talked about a month ago that I've gotten the most clicks and engagement on ever in my life is a video of me complaining about people driving the wrong way up interstate on-ramps. millions of views. I get most of my Instagram notifications are still people talking about a video from August the 5th because it's put to the top of their feed because it's freaking rage bait. And I wasn't trying to rage bait. I was just trying to point out an issue, and it turns into the thing that I very much hate the most on the internet, besides illegal things to people who are innocent.
You've never
or something
turned
like
around
that,
on
okay?
an on-ramp before?
No. No, I have not. It's driving the wrong way. Here's the thing. It's fine when you're on a ramp, and then you have to enter the road the wrong way at a non-signaled entry point. So
anyway,
we're not going. Let's just.
I think the only thing I would change about
Here we go. Respond right here. Respond right here. Doug is a Karen. Respond right here.
I think the only thing I would change about this year would be where the championship race was ended at.
I can't wait to listen back to this so I can hear what Dan just said because the internet is glitching. Okay, so let's take this into the garage. Hey, 5 to go final thoughts. I'll start because I meant to mention this last week. All right. Godspeed to Fred Harris. And I put a post about this. It probably got like 12 clicks or something because it's not rage bait. All right. So Godspeed to Fred Harris, owner of the barbecue house. We called it Fred's Barbecue House. Lithia Springs, Georgia, Thornton Road, about 2 miles north of I-20. He opened the barbecue house decades ago, served the famous Yellow Jacket dogs. But that's not why I say Godspeed to Fred. He was in his 90s, went to his funeral this past Sunday. Fred and his sons and family and friends hosted, including the late Captain Herb Emery, who is the foundational inspiration for this podcast. They did the annual Toys for Tots drive, and they became to support other charities in his later years. And every year we'd have this big, and Dan, you were a part of it, this big racing shebang. We'd have race cars and all sorts of attractions there. Have a motorcycle ride. Thornton Road, we do a live broadcast on my former radio station. And it was a big time deal. And they raised tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for Toys for Tots and Operation Christmas, but also thousands and thousands of toys and filling up tractor trailers. So Godspeed to Fred Harris. And of course, he and Captain Herb really inspired me in as far as things that, I've gotten a chance to do in the nonprofit side. Attached to that is today, this very day, happy birthday to Karen Emery, Captain Herb's widow, and still someone who's very close in the circle of mine there. Karen does not like to celebrate her birthday, and anybody that knows her tries to call. Good luck getting through because it's not, it's a day that she puts aside and just chills out. But happy birthday to sweet Karen. I got to see her this past Sunday at Fred's funeral, and just all the love to her. She's still helping folks and dealing with a lot herself. So God bless her. So that's my 5 to go final thought. Dev, what's on your mind, buddy?
We are fully into the off season now, so my final thought will be, we haven't talked about it all podcast, but how about the weather here in Georgia? Mid 60s on Sunday, mid 30s on Monday, 40s on Tuesday, and then yesterday and today it's been in the 60s, upper 60s, and then guess what? Tomorrow and Saturday going to be in the mid to upper 70s. Can't make it up. Can't make it up.
I love Georgia. Good. Yeah, I'm all about it.
Stay tuned next week. You'll hear my thoughts on what they should do with Georgia 400 north of exit 18.
North of Highway 369, the newest exit on 4. Isn't that 7? Yeah, 18. Okay. Dan?
Or 19 or 18, one of the two.
18. It's 18. It's 18. Hey, Dev, you're an adult. Over 18 only, buddy. Come on. All right. Dan, how about you?
Is this audio coming through good?
Man, your audio is going in and out like crazy. I'm sure whatever you said was great, though.
No, I was going to say that all North Georgia's parking lot right now anyway, so it doesn't matter.
There you go, park it. There it is. All right, so it cut in and out. So, but was that your final thought, Dan? Is 400 traffic is a parking lot in Dawsonville right now? Amen. Amen.
Thought.
And I've got the solution, but stay tuned next week.
All right, so respond right here. You want to hear Devin's solution about Georgia 400 traffic between Coal Mountain and Dawsonville next week. Respond right here, especially our California listeners. Respond right here. Hire Devin. Respond right here, okay? I'm telling you, that's it. Okay, so for Dan and Devin, thank you all for sticking with us. I know we got, especially yours truly, got a little loquacious there today, but we want you to subscribe We do one each week, even if it's late in the week. I know the post-championship show didn't come out till, was it Sunday morning I did it? I think it was Sunday morning I put it out. Didn't even put social media out for it. I've just been covered over with work stuff. But we're still putting out something each week. We try to do them a little earlier in the week than Thursday, but that's how it's shaking out lately, okay, with work schedules and whatnot. And share it. If it's something, if you know some racing fans or people that you think want to take a deeper dive, be sure to do that. Devin Kupka, you can find him Instagram and Facebook and X. All right. And I'm Doug Turnbull. You can find me there. And hey, Dan Elliott, go look him up on YouTube. All right. Go look him up on YouTube. And if you can't find him there, you can find him at the McDonald's outside the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, Dawsonville City Hall, Highway 53. Okay. God bless you all. And we're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. No, we're already thankful and continue to be thankful for you. So for Dan and Devin, I'm Doug. Godspeed, Fred Harris, and we'll see you next week here on the 5 to Go podcast, sponsored by Our Opinions.